Let's podcast alongside Joe Giglio. I'm Joe Ovies inside Eford Studios in downtown Raleigh. Thanks to Empire Properties. Thanks to Copiers Plus. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. Print management, document management. Get everything you need to the cloud. We are in the middle of tax season. We're bringing that tax thing home here at OG Media. If you get like a last minute thing, you got to like scan and upload. Maybe you want to take a look at the Sun Belt Conference Tournament bracket. Like, can I fit that on a Kyocera glass to scan? It's a big bracket.
I don't think you're going to be able to do that. No.
But I bet you can. So anyway, go check out copiers-plus.com. Also, big thanks to Leanne for trimming up the beard.
Yeah, because you get out of the van down by the river, you're finally...
Apparently, I did not realize my beard would cause concern?
Yeah. I even got a text from a former coworker.
Yeah.
Or I guess Jessica got a text.
Jessica,
like, hey, can you please check on Ovies? Like, I'm willing to chip in.
Like, I also had Wojcik message like, man, there's something about that beard and that camo hat that's making me feel some type of way. I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. I know Cuba's in the news lately, but like, let's calm down, okay? Let's calm down.
That might be what it was. A little straggly.
It happens sometimes,
yeah. It does.
So thankfully, Leanne cleaned it up today. I'm ready for the ACC tournament.
You're fresh and so clean.
Are you ready? Are you ready? You're getting a haircut today too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Got to look good for the ACC tournament. It's like our big. It's like our high school reunion every time.
I really didn't want State to play at noon. Like, so I'm of two minds now. Only having one game on Wednesday and it being at noon is glorious, obviously. But my struggles in getting to Charlotte. So it feels like I'm going to have to get up extra early to get on the road, to avoid some traffic, to avoid not being in a hurry, to avoid all of those potential traffic violations that seem to pop up when I drive either to the greater Greensboro or Charlotte areas.
Wait, I'm confused. You're up at 4 a.m. What is the struggle to get to Charlotte?
It's not up. It's just like when I get this like anxiety of hitting the traffic because of that one time it took me 6 hours to get to the 2012 Belk Bowl.
Took
5 hours.
6 hours?
6 hours. Twice.
So it was like an accident?
There was two. The Carolina one I covered. Is that West Virginia? No, they lost to Tom O'Brien. Gosh, Boston College. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, well, speaking of Boston College a long time ago, we'll get to that here in a second.
Yeah. So I get anxiety about driving to Charlotte.
Okay.
Then I'm going to take the train, but James is going and then James is leaving. So I have to drive James's car back from Charlotte.
Okay.
Otherwise, I just go with you because you're not going to Philadelphia randomly for a cockamamie, harebrained hockey tournament in the middle of the ACC tournament this year.
I did not schedule a March end of season tournament. We did our 5 tournament budget allotment in the middle of the season, not tacking one on at the end.
Perfect.
Also, the reason why we didn't do that is because high school hockey started up.
Oh,
so I'm going to miss Jacob's first Enloe versus Carey.
Oh, out the gate.
Out the gate, man. Out the gate, Enloe versus Carey in the Triangle High School Hockey Club Association or whatever it's called. So not that I think Jacob's going to get a lot of play time as a freshman with a bunch of seniors on the ice, but we'll see. So
nice.
I'll have to go to Invisalign the following week to watch him suit up. Scoeags. Anyway, that's what they say. They say Scoeags.
Perfect.
I don't care. Shout out to Enloe.
Yeah.
So yeah, no hockey tournaments this year. Okay, but I'm not driving you. That's what I'm hearing.
You're not, because James is going to go on spring break.
Where's he going for spring break?
Florida. Panama City.
Oh, jeez, man.
So they're driving.
How cliche could James be going to Panama? Is MTV spring break going to be there? Is Kennedy hanging out?
Sadly, he wants to go gamble because you could be 18 and play poker in Florida.
I had such a thing for Kennedy back in the day.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Very much my type. Anyway, I'm sorry. She's super fair skinned with black hair. Sign me up. Now, you said, so you can gamble at 18 down in Panama City?
In Florida, you could play poker at 18 and Rhode Island.
Okay. Because like Caleb's whole thing for spring break is that he turns 18 over spring break. So we're going to go back to the U.S. Virgin Islands.
I could see Hernando taking his...
Well, there is a casino. No, that would be my brother.
Your brother.
My brother's the Nene.
The
Nene. So no, at St. John, we're staying in the National park campground, Cinnamon Bay.
Oh, nice.
And but they're in Cruise Bay, there is a casino. But I think you have to be 21 to be in the casino. But big reason why he wanted to take a spring break trip to either
you can drink
St. John or Puerto Rico is that you can drink at 18.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to end up doing.
Nice.
So if it's spring break, Panama City is cracking me up.
It's a choice, man.
It's an absolute
Him and his
choice.
buddies, they're on their way. They went to Fort Lauderdale last year.
Is he really knocking off all the 80s and 90s cliche spring break spots?
Mm-hmm.
Was Lake Havasu next?
He turns 21 on the 6th, the night of the national championship. So if Duke is in the national championship, I will be doing the After Dark from the Rivers Casino in Portsmouth, Virginia.
Oh, geez. I've driven past that place.
I have not.
I have not. It kind of comes out of nowhere.
That's what
it's
Darren was saying. Darren's going with us too.
Okay. Yeah. It's a rather large facility, not a lot of windows because they don't want you to know what time it is, obviously, in that casino. But I've driven past it.
Is it big Jason Bateman vibes, the casino, the Riverboat Casino where he was laundering the money in whatever that movie, the TV shows, the Ozarks?
The Ozarks.
Is there Ozarks energy to this casino?
I never watched the Ozarks. I know of it. I know the concept of the show. I never watched the show, but no, it's not like that.
Okay.
It just looks like, if you didn't know any better, it's like a retrofitted mall.
Oh. At
first, I thought it was a big car dealership.
Oh. Speaking of car dealerships, you can buy a car.
You can.
From the Heister Auto Group.
You can.
HeisterAuto.com. Big shouts to our guy Bennett for taking care of us.
Yeah, he's been busy with us the last couple of weeks. So we're going to be busy at the ACC tournament, as we mentioned. I guess
Thursday is going to be.
We're going to have, hold on a second. Let's have a little.
Shoosh.
We'll have a meeting here as we set the table for the week. Today is the only show we're doing from the studio today. We're not doing a show tomorrow. We'll have an OG business, and then we're going to be in essentially live protocols for the rest of the week. So we'll do a show after Wednesday's NC State versus who?
Stanford.
Yeah, it's going to be Stanford. We'll get to the reason why in a second. Thursday, you're already going shoosh because we're going to do two that night. We're going to do one post-Duke, one Carolina, right?
Are we?
That's what you said. At first, I was like, all right, I guess we'll just stay up late that night and do one show after the Duke-Carolina game.
Oh.
Or if you just want to do one, we could do one.
How about this?
But when I initially brought it up, you said, no, just do one after the Duke game. We'll do one after the Carolina game.
Man. Well, let's play that one by ear.
Okay.
Because if State is to somehow beat Kyle Smith, then we would need to do one after State.
Yeah, in the afternoon, yeah.
And then we would need to do, then I would say we max at 2 shows a day. That's our max.
Okay.
So if State plays, we would do one after State and then just one after Duke.
Duke-Carolina game. Or the Duke-Carolina games.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
If
that's a true
State
after dark
is not to play, then I could be talked into one after Carolina, one after Duke.
Like a quick Duke hit after the 7:00 game and then
Duke's at the late game.
Well, I thought Duke was the first one.
I don't think so.
Okay. I mean, either way, it doesn't matter. We're staying
because the Carolina game's going to be an interesting game. The Duke game's probably not going to be that interesting, even without all their parts.
That's fair. And then we'll do the same thing on Friday after the semifinals.
Well, Fridays we'll just have one. It'll be Duke against Carolina in theory.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That all makes sense. I should probably look at the bracket.
We will not have a triple dipple after dark. That will not be in play.
Man, I'm kind of sad about that.
Okay.
Kind of sad about that. Now, the reason why we say that is because
now playing it by ear, like if something calamitous happens, like on Saturday where Caleb Foster gets hurt or someone else gets hurt, well then we'll fire that thing.
Oh, sure. Now, so State's going to play on Wednesday, and they're likely to play Stanford. The reason why they're likely to play Stanford is that it looks like Pitt is going to be part of the ACC coach hiring cycle here. Going to the ACC tournament, we know that Georgia Tech is moving on from Stoudemire. And it looks like Earl Grant is also done at Boston College. Grant's been there, 5 years? Never had a winning record in the ACC with Boston College. Never made the NCAA tournament. So they're moving on. And it's Boston College and Georgia Tech are interesting jobs today. And Pitt also is an interesting job because it looks like Pitt is going to move on from Jeff Capel based on some reporting that I've seen. Of course, that's not official yet because they have to play Stanford. But with that news floating out there that Pitt is going to be moving on from Jeff Capel, I would likely take Stanford in this game on Tuesday for them to then see NC State on Wednesday, which gets back into your run it back protocols.
Yeah. I don't think we needed Jeff Capel's exit to pick Stanford in that game.
I'm just
but
saying
I hear what
that,
you're saying.
That just kind of crystallizes hey man, anything can happen, right? But
8 years at Pitt for Jeff.
Yeah.
Obviously had the first team that won in the first four, had some hard luck with some of these other teams, only made it once. I think the 24 team really deserved to be in the field. They weren't. And that was part of that crush of the ACC, basically, going back to Saturday's conversation. The ACC has made strides in solving their how do we get teams into the field problems, scheduling wise, and reducing the conference schedule and doing some smarter things. But ultimately, the success of the ACC this year is that first baby step of getting more teams in. I really, really, really have a hard time believing anybody joins Duke in the Sweet 16. Louisville might have some sort of surprise in them. I hear you. I don't see it. Virginia, I really don't see it.
Yeah.
Carolina without Caleb Wilson, I don't see it.
That's the thing that
who's actually like playing the best in the ACC right now, not besides Duke, Florida State,
and yet. So the thing about Carolina, I am not going to take too much out of what happened to them on Saturday against Duke. I'm going to focus more on the teams that they beat that were fringy NCAA tournament teams, as you mentioned, right? Louisville, Clemson being that happened at home. I get all that kind of stuff. What I am going to say is that there are positives to take away from North Carolina in how they've played and guys having stepped up in the absence of Caleb Wilson, right? They know what they need to do to win without him. And if I'm going to spin it in the most positive way, there's no guesswork as to Caleb Wilson. When's he going to come back? What's the lineup going to look like? How do people there's no Kyrie Irving discussion,
right?
Like that everybody was wanting to have with Caleb Wilson's potential return, Carolina, and how good they could be. The Kyrie Irving thing I always thought was a weird comparison given the amount of time that Kyrie missed. He only suited up, 10 games, if I remember correctly?
I think it was 8.
For Duke?
Yeah.
So that wasn't the Caleb Wilson situation. What I would say is, I'll just kind of reiterate myself here, in that what you need to do to win without Caleb Wilson. I think in the opening games of the NCAA tournament, they can win 2. Getting to the Sweet 16 would be huge for North Carolina, is I guess what I'm getting at. It would be huge for them to do that. And if they do, hey man, I would say it's a very successful season, all things considered, with the context of the injuries and what was expected out of Hubert Davis this season. As for the rest of the ACC, hey man, I'm kind of with you. I don't know what to expect. I really do not know what to expect out of a team like Louisville. I really don't. Virginia too. I guess that's a matchup situation for Virginia.
Virginia is last year's Louisville.
And how'd that work out for them? Right. So I see what you're saying on that. Now, as far as these jobs, at Georgia Tech, the thing that always sticks out to me is the conversation we had with Josh Pastner, however many years ago that was, when we brought him pizza, right? And it was, he joked about having a negative NIL. And you gotta imagine, with all the rules and the news that has happened over the last 5 years, that Georgia Tech understands if they want to compete in the ACC, they have to put some money into the basketball program and not be a quote unquote negative NIL program the way it was for Josh Pastner. With Boston College, I feel like Boston College's issues, that's been long running ever since Al Skinner finally ran out of steam at BC when they came over from the Big East. They played a particular brand of basketball. They were successful. The flex. They were successful with it. You go back and you look at those teams in the 05, 06, 07 timeframe with Craig Smith and Jared Dudley, a young baby Tyrese Rice coming through there. And then after the Tyrese Rice run ended, that's when Boston College has never been the same. They move on from Al Skinner. I forgot that Jim Christian was the head coach there for a hot minute.
He recruited our guys, Jerome Robinson, and
I had forgotten about that era of Boston College, right? And with Earl Grant, again, same situation. This is just what's your NIL? Yeah. That's right. You had a song for Kai Bowman.
I got Kai Bowman.
So it's kind of like the same conversation we had with Matt Norlander around Syracuse. There's some of these old Big East jobs that in a time and place were considered good jobs. You could get a player.
Pitt was.
Yeah, you could get a type of player to sit there 4 years, 5 years. and build your program, and you played a particular style of basketball that worked for you, and see how far you could take it. Pitt was in that same boat with Jamie Dixon, and they just have not necessarily been the same. These are proud. I mean, if you think about it, it's been a long time, but these are ultimately proud basketball programs that just have not been able to get right in the modern era, and it requires money. It requires money and a right mix of players to make it work year in, year out, which is tricky, as you like to say, the year-to-year proposition.
And I think it's been hard getting the right coach, particularly in the Boston College situation. I do think Earl's a good coach, but his background was really not in the Northeast. And I've always felt like ever since Tom O'Brien came from Boston College to NC State, one of the things he always said to me was I underestimated the type of player I was going to get at NC State. I knew what I was going to get at Boston College, the offensive linemen, the linebackers, the big guys up front. He's like, I knew I could get a quarterback too with Dana.
Yeah.
He's like, when I left Boston College, I thought I'd be able to come to NC State and maybe be more athletic but still get the type of lineman that we had, the type of, Northeast mentality guy that we had, maybe the Catholic school kind of guy, and convince him to come down here. And that's where Boston College has had to lean, especially on the football side. But on the basketball side, you think about the Northeast, like you're going to have to recruit Philly. You're going to have to recruit New York. You're going to have to recruit, some of those Northeast cities, and convincing them to go to Boston College without NIL becomes hard. So you do almost have to go back to that system. Right? Do something different.
You're going to have to build the different mousetrap, as we like to say, at schools like that. Because what you're hitting on is the real issue for teams like Boston College and Pitt, who are no longer in the Big East. The Big East cares about basketball.
Yeah.
And
those fan bases were engaged because they played other teams that they cared about.
Yes. And they don't have that anymore. Yeah. In an ideal world, you would send Boston College and Pitt back into that cycle of playing Big East teams, and they can go to Madison Square Garden and have their fun experience. So when you're competing with Big East programs who actually invest, that is their football. UConn, it matters to them. Providence, it matters to them. Even places like St. John, it matters to them. So they have that money there with the revenue share. It's tough to compete on the recruiting trail. So really, really tough jobs, really, really difficult spots. Georgia Tech is a different kind of one because, again, you got the academic aspect of this, and then how much money do you want to devote to basketball as it relates to the revenue share? Here's my question: You think Kevin Keatts runs it back at any of these ACC programs that might be coming open? Boston College, Georgia Tech, maybe.
It's interesting.
Providence is open. It's gonna open, right?
I think that's the one he wants.
Okay.
I think our friend Luke DeCock had this right in 2011 when Paul Hewitt left Georgia Tech. Lavelle Moten in Atlanta would be a force.
I could see that.
Would be a recruiting force.
Understands, and Georgia Tech can utilize Lavelle Moten understanding you have to build things differently at a place like Central in this modern era. Oh, we can do this here at Georgia Tech with those advantages, as you said. It's obviously a shot in the dark. The number of coaches who go from an HBCU to a power program is like zero. Deion Sanders is your one example there on the football side, but it's Deion. He's one of one.
Yeah, I mean,
but with amazing with an amazing kid, right?
Lavelle knows everyone.
Yeah,
it's just a fact.
Yeah,
and him being in Atlanta would just be this perfect marriage for them. They don't have that type of vision, though, to make something like that work.
No.
I appreciate what they tried to do with Damon Stoudemire, who didn't have a great run in Pacific before they had hired him. But it was an NBA guy. You're in an NBA city. I kind of understood it. Georgia Tech, again, much like those other Big East teams that have lost their playing partners, Georgia Tech was not an original ACC member, but Bobby Cremins had kind of ingrained them in the 80s as like the Maryland, the NC State. They were the ones trying to punch up at Duke and Carolina.
Yes.
And chase them and get to them. And it's been a different job, obviously, in the last 20, 25 years. And a lot of schools have been willing to sacrifice their academics. Georgia Tech has never been one to do that.
They will not.
Seeded territory, the bracket is the story. Patrick Stevens tells it like it is.
thank goodness we have another jingle, because I don't think we'll be using the Will Wade bent jingle for the rest of the season. I think we can retire that bit, don't you think?
And that's okay.
That's fine.
You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to play the hits, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it runs its course.
Patrick, I'm going to put that jingle in the best of jingle box. Maybe we come back to it next season. We'll see how it goes. But for this season, Patrick Stevens, our senior OG bracketologist, where you can see his updated brackets all the time over at oviesgiglio.com. What is the actual story around NC State and how they've closed the season, losing 6 of their last 7, including this game to Giglio's homeboy, Kyle Smith, on Saturday?
Well, sorry, I've got this guy.
A cat appearance.
A cat appearance.
There's nothing wrong with having a cat interrupt the broadcast. There's nothing wrong with that. You're never going to get a complaint from me on that one.
Okay. Well, Jack has just made his Ovies and Giglio debut.
Awesome. I love it.
So the deal with NC State, obviously not playing great.
Yeah.
obviously. Let's start with the basics.
All right, Patrick Stevens. Patrick Stevens.
That's what you're paying me for, guys.
As always.
But the reality is that they built enough of a cushion there in the first 3 months of the season that they've still been able to withstand this. I do think there's greater danger now than there was even a week ago of NC State slipping into the first 4 and heading to Dayton. But when you look around the country and you see all the teams that lost on Saturday and Friday as well, you're talking about Texas, Missouri, Indiana, Virginia Tech, Cal, Seton Hall. I mean, the list kind of went on and on and on of all these teams. SMU, that just simply did not take advantage of the opportunities presented to themselves. So, yeah, NC State lost, but it's not like they lost a ton of ground over the weekend. They probably got passed by Ohio State.
Okay.
But there wasn't much, and so I don't know if they're quite the Dayton at this point. It's getting close.
Oh, man. Well, okay. We got 3 things to branch off of that.
Okay.
But specifically, where NC State helped itself, they don't necessarily have what you would call a name win. They have nothing that jumps off the page if you were just to glance at their schedule.
Oh, no.
They got a Carolina win.
They have one of those, but you just need to add context to it.
Well, we've done that, which then gets back to my original point. They have nothing that pops off the page if you're really looking at it. Where they made up stuff was in terms of beating the right teams in the right conditions. What is that?
They certainly did that. They won it. They won at Clemson. You start looking at teams that are around their spot in the field. They won at SMU. They beat VCU and Virginia Tech.
Okay.
So there's stuff there, but they're a team that largely, with one exception, did not mess up.
Okay.
Even that Stanford game the other day, that's a quad 2 game. That's a top 60 opponent. Like, essentially, I don't even know if we would be having any sort of serious conversation about NC State if that Georgia Tech game wasn't there. Like, they'd probably be a couple spots further up the board and have even more insulation from the edge of the field at this point.
And then they're not on the bubble.
If we're strictly saying like right around the 37th at-large team, no. I think there's plenty of – there's probably like somewhere between 4 and 6 teams between them.
So the Black Swan event would really have to be some upset winners turning 1 bid league into 2 bid leagues.
I think that's it. And at this point, you have pressure. It comes from above or below, right? Like if it's coming from below, that's a team like a Stanford making a run in the ACC tournament. And so many of the teams that we're looking at there in that part of the bracket just have shown no real ability to string together too many wins in a row. It just hasn't happened this year. So why would it happen now? Could, but it's probably not going to. The real issue is, does St. Louis win the Atlantic 10? Does Utah State win the Mountain West? Does Miami, Ohio win the MAC? Does Oregon State somehow make a run in the WCC? That league can be crossed off the bid snatchers list if Oregon State loses to Gonzaga tonight. And then, is there a surprise Big East winner that somehow gets through both St. John's and Connecticut?
What is the Black Swan event? Missing the tournament or Dayton against Herb Sedbeck? Because I think the Black Swan event is Dayton versus, for us. That's
No,
what
that would
that's
be
what we
amazing.
want. That's what we want.
That would be amazing. But
Well,
no,
that's what you guys have clearly wanted here for a month.
we're speaking.
Okay, like you really have
That's
been. You have been bending the universe to your will on
We
this.
so badly want to go to Dayton
Herb,
to do a show.
don't go beating one of the teams above your station in life out in the West Coast Conference. Don't fuck this up for us, okay, Herb? Because Will's trying on our behalf to get them to Dayton. Okay, the Wolves are trying to get there. All right, are you ready to radio this thing up, Joe Ovies?
Well, I have one more branching topic. Okay, real quick. I want to go back to something you said during the After Dark. You said something like the ACC is falling apart down the stretch.
Mm-hmm.
But Patrick, as we were talking about NC State, you were highlighting other teams from other conferences who also didn't exactly close things out on the on an upward trend. So this is beyond the ACC, right? There's just a lot of teams that aren't closing the deal outside of, say, Miami, Ohio, who actually understood the assignment going into the end of the regular season.
Yeah, Miami, Ohio did it, and you look at teams like Ohio State, TCU, Texas A&M got a couple wins late to kind of solidify themselves, and UCLA. I think those would be the teams that you would sit there and say, yeah, they did what they were supposed to do, and throw St. Mary's in as well, because that was a team that we were kind of looking at little dicey. But a lot of these teams that are shuffling around 500 in their conferences, well, what a surprise that they're not very good and can't do that. And can't beat high-end teams. Like, is it, for example, the Missouri example, they lost in overtime to Arkansas. So not a terrible loss. Would have been a nice thing for them to add to kind of solidify things, but not a surprise that Missouri would lose that game. Is it a surprise that SMU lost at Florida State? Probably not with the way that they've been playing. And by the way, Florida State turned out to have a pretty nice little season this year.
Sure.
All things considered. And so we can run through a bunch of these teams. Like, is it a shock that Indiana lost at Ohio State? No, really isn't, given that Indiana hadn't been playing all that great aside from a victory over Minnesota last week. So, these teams are sitting around the 9, 10, 11 lines because they're not great. And so, you're trying to get some sort of effort here to take care of what you're supposed to take care of. And I would say NC State did not succeed on that front on Saturday. But in general, like, you expect teams around there to probably be about 500 at any given stretch during conference play, because that's what they are.
Okay. Now, I just wanted to clear the decks on that. Now you guys are going to wow me with your radio prowess.
Yes.
Okay. I'm all right.
We have a bit for you.
All right.
Sir.
The professor has started class. I'll be curious to see if two longtime print dudes can wow me with their radio skills.
Who doesn't on a bracketology podcast love a blind resume?
Oh shit! Yes. Ooh, we got three.
I have blacked out their team names. I blacked out their record because it's slightly giving it away. Team A.
Okay.
36 in the net. 1-12 Q1. 8-0 Q2. I'll just go through the important numbers here. Strength of schedule, non-conference strength of schedule, 5, WOB 42. Team B, net 35, very similar. 5-7 though Q1, 6-4 Q2. Non-conference strength of schedule 73, WOB 43. Team C, 42 in the net, 1-5 Q1, 6-1 though Q2. 104 non-conference and 40 WOB. Look at those WOBs. Look at those nets.
Very similar.
The corporate wants to tell us the difference between these three teams. If we just went here, I'll make it simple. I'll make it simple. I'll do it better.
Yeah. Excel spreadsheet.
Corporate, can you tell us the difference between these teams?
I think because I kind of know
Yeah.
the current team B is NC State, right?
Team B, the Wolfpack.
Okay.
Yeah, you have that one right.
Yeah, Team B is NC State.
Boom.
Can you go back to the full numbers, please?
No.
Damn it. I wanted to say the Team C was Carolina last year.
They're on this board. But
No, I know
not Team C.
they're clearly on this board because I know what the overall exercise here is. But I thought it was Team C. So
Team A is the droid you're looking for.
Okay,
That is the Tar Heels.
I thought the Tar Heels had a higher WOB at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So okay.
They didn't do anything dumb. Great metrics didn't do anything dumb.
Yes.
Who's
Who's Team C?
Team C, you know them. You love them.
Oh no. No! No, not Herb Sendek.
Herb. I mean, corporate, tell us the difference here. 36, 35, 42, 42, 43, 40.
Oh, man.
Woo.
That's the reckoning, I guess.
That's it. There, yeah,
that is
you reached peak Herb.
Peak Herb. You brought the reckoning in year one. You were Carolina last year. The reckoning. Jeez.
I do agree with Will that it is the complete picture.
It is, and that's why they're in.
And that's why, but the good metrics too.
Yeah.
I feel like it's changed a little bit because to your point, who have they beaten? We put the asterisk on Carolina, but if you look at the team sheet and you're just John from Portland, you're like, oh, and they beat Carolina. What are you guys talking about?
Patrick.
Oh, you want my thoughts here?
Yes.
I just thought that we were at the point where it was such a herb fest that that Giglio was just going to revel in that. Yeah, I mean, the thing when you look at State, there's not a ton that you're going to sit there and go, well, this disqualifies them. Like there's nothing that stands out. And sometimes that's what you have to do is just have stuff that doesn't stand out as opposed to stuff that does stand out. Like on the Santa Clara profile, for example, there's a loss to number 289 Loyola Chicago. Like that stands out. Mm-hmm. We think back, even going back to the Gottfried team that slipped into the field, the last team in the field, that was a team that simply didn't stand out. And they had a couple road wins. Like they'd done some stuff and hadn't done too much that was bad. And it was just like okay, well, this is the team that doesn't stand out in a bad way. And, for NC State, I think at this point, especially as long as they don't have to play what Pitt is the other team in that segment of the ACC tournament bracket.
Well, as we talked about earlier, Pitt, I don't think it's going to be Pitt because on top of
let them go, right? Or they're
in the process of doing it. We know officially that Georgia Tech is moving on. We know that Boston College is moving on. Pitt, there's just reports that the plan is for them to part ways with Jeff Capel. It just never really took off for Jeff Capel at Pitt, which leads to that run it back situation that we talked about earlier. To start the show. Now, speaking of the Tar Heels this year, in some ways, it makes it easier to discuss North Carolina because we know what North Carolina is without Caleb Wilson over. We have enough data now going into the end of the regular season without Caleb Wilson, right? And we know that he's not going to be there the rest of the season, if ever, when it comes to his Tar Heel career. There's two separate conversations. It sucks, right? It sucks. And as we talked about on the After Dark, Caleb Wilson will go into the great what if Mount Rushmore of UNC basketball teams. But we know what they are now. And they are what? A 5 seed?
Yes, right at the bottom of the 5 line. Yeah.
Okay. So what do they have to do? They get the double bye. So what is necessary for them to? Are they going to move off that? Is it more like what happens elsewhere? I mean, what is their position going into the ACC tournament?
I think that there's some space between Arkansas and Vanderbilt and St. John's above them on the 5 line. So I think the greater issue is, does somebody on that 6 line make a push this week, or more likely, is there a scenario where the committee looks and says, all right, well, this team isn't the same. And they're 5-2, right? Without Caleb Wilson. And if they go and they get a split, a Clemson-Duke split, let's say, in Charlotte, well, then they're what? They're 6-3 with 2 losses to Duke, which I don't know if that really says. I don't think that really says a whole lot to you, right?
That tells me nothing in the grand scheme of things.
So, is it possible that they get dinged a seed line because of Wilson's absence? Yeah, I think that's possible, but I don't see them plummeting very far. And the other thing to remember is just about everybody loses this week. So, they might take a loss to a Clemson, which isn't a terrible loss, or a Duke, which obviously there's a lot of Duke losses floating around out there, or losses to Duke, I should say. And then, Wisconsin will probably lose to somebody in the Big Ten tournament, and BYU will probably lose to somebody in the Big 12 tournament, and Louisville will probably lose.
Issues, BYU.
Yep.
So I think 5 or 6 seed for Carolina at this point.
All right. So where are we stand right now for the ACC in terms of overall tournament bids?
I have 9, but one of them is extremely flimsy at this point. That somebody has to fill the last spot in the field. Like we could really use a 67 team field this year, based on where things stand.
Who's the ninth team that's flimsy right now?
Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech.
I mean, if you don't have Virginia Tech, all right, then Auburn or Indiana. You can argue. You can't really make a great argument for any single one of them. So that is a team that I have in the field simply because I need a 68th team in the field. But don't feel great about them. They haven't really done a whole lot themselves. They did beat Virginia at home, so they have I think they have an at Clemson as well. But otherwise, you're talking about Duke and Virginia that are teams that have a real shot. I mean, Duke should be the number 1 overall seed. Virginia is going to be a 3 or a 4, I think. And then you've got the Carolina and Louisville, Miami, Clemson tier after that. And then it's NC State and SMU that probably are getting threatened with Dayton at this point, if not outright there at this stage, because SMU has quietly tanked just every bit as much as NC State has over the last couple of weeks, dropping its last 4.
You got any more blind items for Patrick?
No, but I do. I love a good conspiracy. Last year was so much about Bubba Cunningham, Carolina being the last team in. The only reason was, the reason was metrics, but the only reason was Bubba. Because Bubba was on the committee. So Patrick, every year I make him dust off the designated mid-major team that shows up in the first 4. And so I think we already know the answer. The answer really is going to be Herb Sendek and Santa Clara.
Yes.
And this is other than logic and all those other things, here's the actual answer to why. If we look at the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee this year, Sun Belt Commissioner is the chairman. Okay, cool. Minnesota, cool. Alabama. Scrolls. Oh, look at this. The West Coast Conference Commissioner is on the committee this year.
I see.
So everyone, when the West Coast Conference gets 3 teams in this year,
now
please be very clear, okay? If you're the West Virginia governor right now, find yourself a chart. Go to Color Graphics, send them an email, sales@colorgraphic.com, so that you can put your bogus NCAA chart up in front of you while you have your press conference, because there's going to be 3 West Coast Conference teams in the NCAA tournament this year. Our hope is that it will be Herb Sendek versus NC State.
Fingers crossed. Too late to go to New Orleans and go get some incense.
We don't need it. We've been that powerful.
This is true. I mean, look, honestly, ever since we put up the I was there,
Herb's been on a run.
Herb has been on a run. It's funny. That picture cracks me up because you could tell they took it at a time of the day where the sun was in their face.
So they're all
like, if you look at Herb in the picture, he's just like, oh, yeah, he looks like my kids when I take a picture. All right. Patrick Stevens, oviesandgiglio.com, our senior OG media bracketologist. We appreciate your help the last couple of weeks, Patrick. It's looking good on the website, so everybody should go check it out, and we will obviously check in with you while we're in Charlotte for the ACC tournament.
Thanks so much for having me, and safe travels down there.
Housekeeping is brought to you by Enovana. Check them out online at enovana.com.
If you have mess inside your mansion or trash in your cabana, get it clean with Enovana.
We got OG Light Bracket Night, which is taking place a week from today, Monday, March 16th at Longleaf Swine. They are not open on Monday, but we got them open for OG Light Bracket Night. Head on over to oviesandgiglio.com. and you'll see the link to purchase your ticket. $49, $2 handling fee. Okay, because everything has a fee these days. So $49, $2 handling fee. It gets you a barbecue buffet, dessert, a pint of OG Light, and a hang with us while we fill out some brackets and we do a show. Mitch and Mia are going to be there. We're actually going to talk to Mitch Northam here in a little bit to talk about the ACC Women's Tournament. We're in our Kara era, Joe.
Nice.
At Duke. Regardless,
back to back for them.
Go to oviesandgiglio.com and get your tickets today. I was actually at Longleaf yesterday for dinner. Had my OG Light. Had the I feel like we take the burger for granted because we're always like interested in the specials and here we go. But that burger, man, I had that burger last night because I had done some day drinking. Caught up with some old friends on Sunday. Had been drinking cheap beers and kept it going with the OG Light, and that burger just hit different on Sunday, man. It was good stuff. So head on over to Longleaf Swine and enjoy OG Light and some smash burgers and everything else. In the meantime, go to oviesandgiglio.com to not only see Patrick's brackets, but also get your tickets to OG Light Bracket Night. We also got some new stuff going up on the Secret Stash. Head on over to the OG.shop. Again, that's the OG.shop. We've been listening to your feedback We do have our dead logos collection over at Breaking Tea, right? Over at breakingtea.com/OG. But they don't do hats at Breaking Tea. So we're putting the Dead Conference logo on a hat. We're putting the Ice Caps inspired logo on a hat. All that kind of fun stuff. And of course, you've got your grateful friends over at oviesgiglio.com as well. Because Mikey P
outdid himself.
He outdid himself with the dancing mascots collection and the tie-dye hoodies and everything else. So head on over to the OG.shop. Again, that's the OG.shop. I'm trying to think. We got any other housekeeping meeting items that we got to discuss?
I don't think so.
We're good? Okay, cool. Big thanks to our guy, Matt Davis, over at State Farm. Check him out online at insuregarner.com. Or call him directly at 919-779-8277. I was actually talking to Matt, last week or the week before, because we're looking for a very specific insurance policy for the podcast. So if you got like a really hyper-specific need, Matt either has the answer for you or he knows the person who will have the answer for you. That's customer service. And we're talking about financial planning as well. Trust me, after having to purchase a car and doing taxes and looking at my budget, I'm like, wow, I really need to do a better job about financial planning. This is where Matt Davis steps in. InsureGarner.com, 919-779-8277. This is kind of like an engagement ring, right? That takes some financial planning. You're getting married. This is a big deal. That's a substantial investment. You got to talk to people who will meet your needs. And to this day, Bailey's Fine Jewelry out in the Village District. They got locations across North Carolina. But for me personally, Village District is where I got Kelly's engagement ring many, many, many years ago. And it was fantastic customer service then. It's fantastic customer service today. And I'm looking forward to the watch event that'll be taking place on March 20th and 21st. So I have a feeling I will be heading out there. Speaking of meetings, we're having a meeting. Amex card. New G-Shock. Cool. Yeah. I'm going to treat myself for my birthday.
You should.
There we go. I'm excited about this. Head on over to BaileyBox.com. Again, that's BaileyBox.com. Go to the Fox and Bailey watch shop.
They have an event coming up on the 20th and 21st.
That event is where I will be. Also, they got like vinyl you can buy while you're there too. They got bourbon. It's all great stuff. So head on over to BaileyBox.com. Again, that's BaileyBox.com. We're getting a lot of Robacks coming in the mail.
Show the people, even though it's it's a one-off.
It's a one-off. It's just for you and me. Well, here's the thing about Roback, right? I'll just go ahead and open this up. You know me.
I actually think this is a good sell because I know where you're going to go, and I'll let you do it.
So here's the thing. You know me. I am not exactly Mr. Wild print man.
Yeah.
Okay. I like a good solid polo. And one thing for our one-offs that we do, can you tell we're almost here to playoff time?
It's just black.
It's just black.
That's a nice shirt. Like that's a clean, nice black shirt that you could do just about anything with.
So to your point, we have a navy blue one that has our little Post-it note logo on it.
Yes.
It is obviously has our logo on it, but just the color itself pops. Clean. It's a nice, clean, solid polo. It pops. And this black is really, really nice and super incredibly comfortable. But here's where they outdid themselves. And I texted with Ben over the weekend because it finally arrived. Their sport button-down shirt with the super soft material that they use for the polos.
Yep.
I was concerned. I'm like, Ben, I do not look like the models, okay? I do not need a highly clingy, form-fitting Oxford, okay? He's like, no, don't worry about it. I'm like, all right, cool. It arrived in the mail.
Sir.
I put it on. Holy shit. Incredibly comfortable, and it hits the dad bod perfectly. So I was like, all right, I got my navy. Now I need one in white. Let's go. So anyway, head on over to Roback. They got new stuff dropping all the time. Use that promo code OG20. Again, that's promo code OG20. And speaking of big life events, right? We talked about engagement rings and things like that. Hey, man, that eventually leads to hopefully you buying a house. And we get it. The interest, in fact, I was just talking to Leanne about this.
Okay.
And she's like, how do people buy houses now? Right. The interest rates are kind of crazy. But what you don't want to do is set yourself back even further by trying to buy down a rate when you're trying to buy a house. That's, $10,000, $15,000 you can use towards a down payment, if you were being honest, right? So don't make that mistake. Contact our friends at Miller Lending, millerlending.com, 919-447-3377. stay flexible. When the rates eventually come down, you can then act on that and save money every single time. To understand it better, just call them. They'll walk you through it, and they'll make sure that when it's time, they'll let you know it's time. So 919-447-3377, MillerLending.com. So on Friday, we went into Tell Me Future Boy as it relates to the Carolina Hurricanes and the NHL trade deadline, right?
We were right.
We were right. We were right. Ultimately, we're like, look, based on everything that has been out there on the internet and based on our own conversations, it didn't really look like the Carolina Hurricanes were in a position to make a big move that would really get them to be better. On top of that, we also have to recognize two other market forces at play. One of them has to do with the way the NHL has restructured a lot of its collective bargaining. Cap going up allows for teams to retain. You also had a lot of new teams in contention that were causing the price of the brick to go up. In fact, when we get to the postseason, there's a separate conversation to be had about a lot of the new young teams or the rebuild teams finally getting into the promised land, while your usual suspects, like the Florida Panthers, have some soul searching to do about what their next chapter is going to be after an incredible run of back-to-back Stanley Cup championships and I think, 3 trips overall. So there's a lot of things going on that causes the market to be affected that way. And then you also have, in the East specifically, some teams making some really curious decisions. I'm looking at you, New York Rangers and Vincent Trocheck. And that also played into why the Hurricanes didn't make any moves. And Joe, as Eric Tulsky said on Friday during his media availability, sometimes the deals just aren't there. And you're going to show some discipline rather than chasing it. And the Canes are essentially set with the addition of Nick Delorier, who skated this morning.
Let's do the good news first.
Okay.
The teams in the East, I don't think around them, Tampa and Buffalo specifically at this point, didn't make big blockbuster moves that, in my opinion, put you behind them. You're racing against them. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
The bad news, the other good news to me, the guy I wanted you to get went to the team that is almost certainly going to win the President's Trophy.
Mm-hmm.
So the team that wins the President's Trophy doesn't win the Stanley Cup, or at least hasn't since 2013.
Mm-hmm.
So if Kadri was going to go to somebody, it was better that he goes to the team that's going to win the President's Trophy, because the power of the President's Trophy can save you from the one big blockbuster move. That being said, I didn't like what the Hurricanes did at the deadline.
Or didn't do.
Yeah. I wanted Bennington, Jordan Bennington from St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worried about how the goaltending is shaping up.
I watched the Calgary game.
Uh-huh.
Ugh.
Now,
Not great.
they did beat Edmonton.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not about the forwards to me. It's not about the defense for sure.
No.
Definitely not about the defense for sure.
No.
The e-bug protocols will kick in. I get all that.
Mm-hmm.
I am worried about the goaltending. And I think Bennington would have been a perfect transition for them, because he has that contract year next year. I don't know if they called. I don't know what the price was. I would have paid it. And here's the reason why I don't like what the Hurricanes ended up doing. Because I think it's based on last year you make a swing, it doesn't work out, you get to the conference finals. In 23, you make a swing, in 24, you make a swing, you get Gensel. It doesn't pan out because you broke up the super successful line because, quote unquote, it didn't have enough size of Jarvis, Gensel, and Aho. 23, remember, the lost year of 23 was when we had Tom Dundon on in the parking lot. I may have been buzzing a little bit, but that day. And I told him, man, like, the window's only open for so long. And he said, nah, Giglio, and he didn't know me. He goes, oh, no, the window's going to be open for a long time.
Yes.
And I just think there are years when you get a kick at this thing that require a move. And I think specifically they didn't make a move because of the previous 2 years. And going back to 23, when they played Florida in the conference finals. A move that year would have pushed them over the edge. And I think this year, ultimately, they'll look back and say, we should have made a move. I think that's what their lament is going to be. That is my concern for them. It's not the way that they're playing.
Yeah.
I am concerned about the goalies. I do think it is a great thing for them that no one else made a great move. One other great canary in the coal mine for them is, well, not so great for them, but probably for the team in the West. Tampa picked up Corey Perry. And if you don't know Corey Perry's history, he has been on the runner-up something like 5 years in a row.
Yeah, you beat me to it. On one hand, you're like, well, you got Corey Perry, which means you're not winning the Stanley Cup.
You're guaranteed to win your conference.
But yes, you're going to win your conference, which, if you believe those types of things. I'm going to disagree with the sentiment that the reason why they didn't make a move this year had something to do with the previous 2 years.
Okay.
Jake Gensel and Mikko Rantanen. Okay. Because those are not trends. Those are individual situations that played out the way that they played out. They could have still had Gensel on the roster. They just had their typical negotiation tactic not play out.
Business Tom.
Here's
Tom. Your number.
Yeah. This is what we think. Great what you think your number is. Business Tom and whatever numbers Tulsky and his merry band of Excel spreadsheet jockeys in the back there at Lenovo Center, whatever it is that they spit out, they feel strongly that's what you're worth. That's the one thing that's very consistent about the Carolina Hurricanes under Tom Dundon. You might have your number, but they got theirs, and they're going to stick to it the best they can. Another thing you have to know about Tom Dundon, the dude loves to win a negotiation, period. That's why these things end up kind of going a little longer than they need to, or they end up being more dramatic than they need to be. And in the case of Gensel, they eventually got to the number they could have gotten Gensel for, but it was too late. And the process had already kind of like left, the air was out of the room at that point, and Gensel moves on, as we know. With the Mikko thing, man, that dude just didn't want to be here. Straight up. Dude didn't want to be here.
Yeah, but that would sour you on a potential. But given what we know about where Dundon's priorities are right now,
yes.
And it's not one thing. I'm not saying they didn't make the move because of the previous years. I'm saying it contributed. So you have three parts of this. You have what happened the previous 2 years.
Yeah.
You have what is Dundon focused on right now, and then you have the price of the brick.
Mm-hmm.
And if
that's the thing,
but it's part of it. But I think it just happened to work out for Florida last year that they got the impact player at a low price.
Yes,
it just happened to work out that way.
Yes,
you're telling me. I mean,
based on everything,
but this is like a classic Joe versus Joe conversation.
Yeah,
would you rather be what they are or have been for the last 7 years?
Yes.
Or would you rather have the fucking cup? And I'm not saying a move guarantees you the cup.
Yeah.
But it's like, I would rather have the cup. I would trade not Nikishin.
Mm-hmm.
I would trade assets to get Binnington to have a square, clean look at the cup. That's what I would do.
I think it all came down to the price of the brick. Straight up.
And I would be interested to know what the price of Binnington was, because obviously he stayed put to.
The thing is, St. Louis had two key guys that they were looking to move. They didn't do it.
Thomas had a huge contract, like
he's got
years.
Like, what, 5 more years, right? Or something like that?
Yeah.
He's got like 5 more years.
So I could see why not making it. And again,
and then with
Marchand is a unicorn.
But real quick about Binnington, I know what you're saying, but what do we know? Regardless of year in, year out fluctuations on what the market is, the goalies are always going to be a high asking price. And we've talked about that with Eric Tulsky. And it probably is a situation with the goalie situation with Carolina. It's we'll address that this off season more than anything else. That's probably
you're back in your. I'm happy being in the playoffs and hitting my ceiling.
Yeah, well, again, they have
consistent ceiling.
They have the belief that what they have is good enough, and I do wonder, especially with some of the changing guard that we're going to see in the playoffs this year, and the Hurricanes being one of the consistent ones. If they don't pull this off, if they don't get to the Stanley Cup Finals, is what I'm getting at. I feel like that's the ultimate goal right now in this kind of like stepping stone. Get into you got to break through the Eastern Conference Finals.
No, I know, but your ultimate goal is to win it.
No, I guess the ultimate goal to win it. But let's also understand what the big knock on the Canes has been. Getting to the Cup Finals, breaking through the Eastern Conference Finals is something that this team has not done under Rod Brindamore, and it's hanging over them the entire time.
Yeah.
If anything, I don't know.
Well, not the entire time. The
Dude,
first year was free money. The second year was a pandemic.
But now it's hanging over you.
Now it is. Yeah.
And you have how many wins in the Eastern Conference Finals?
One.
It's just one. So that's a big thing that's looming over this team. All right. So I think we have to kind of understand what we're looking for with the Carolina Hurricanes. As it relates to the market at this point, I'm going to take Tulsky at his word, and I'm going to take what we know about Tom Dundon too. They're going to remain aggressive. And clearly there was something that was keeping them from going all in. And there had to have been pieces that they just simply were not comfortable moving on from. And Tulsky talked about it on Friday. It's like the balance is always helping yourself out now while also not hurting yourself in the future. To your point, we're willing to sell out now because we know we have a look at this particular thing over a period of time. They're of a different belief. They're still looking to keep themselves in the mix for a lot longer. So who were those pieces that people were coming after? Like the Nikishin thing, right? There's this whole big thing about...
I would not have traded Nikishin pretty much for anything.
Well, I mean, if Connor McDavid was available, they'll probably trade for Connor McDavid. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Nobody's untouchable. This idea that Nikishin is somehow this immovable object. Sorry, I don't believe that. If the deal makes sense, then you absolutely move on from Nikishin because you don't know what his ultimate potential is going to be. He's an unknown right now in the grand scheme of things. And if you could get a known,
so are you.
Yes,
to be at the Stanley Cup Finals in 2006 to see Chris Pronger and be like, the Whalers had him.
Yes.
He drank too much and he was petulant and all these other things, but that's what defensemen have a tendency to do.
And all of a sudden,
you're like, that's what a franchise cornerstone looks like.
With Nikishin, it's, the language barrier and not understanding the NHL is different from the KHL. All the things that clearly annoy Rod right now, to your point, yes, those are things that over time end up going away. But if you can bring in a generational person and he's part of that deal, well, then that exists now. Because that's the thing. So I was reading Lauren Thiessen's article at Defector over the weekend. I was reading it on Sunday morning. And the headline was, I went to Edmonton to see their new hockey palace, and a Carolina Hurricanes game broke out, right? And they know up in Edmonton that there's only so much time left with this particular group, right? And I'm not saying, this is Gretzky 2.0, because at least with Gretzky, they won Stanley Cups. But they're seeing this, holy shit, this other generational NHL talent that we have that's going to go somewhere else, and we're going to remember the good old days. So it's not like somebody like that can't be had. And if Nikishin is part of it, yeah, man, you absolutely make that move every single time. But it just wasn't there. And sometimes we have a tendency to overcomplicate things. And I'm going to take Tulsky as word. The deals simply weren't there. And it's believable that the deals weren't there based on the lack of movement on some of these key pieces, including a guy like Bennington.
I don't think he's being disingenuous. What I'm saying is, I think if Dundon were more focused and not distracted by other things.
So you think he's more interested in what's going on with the Portland Trailblazers and selling pieces of the team
Lenovo
to generate
Center,
money
selling this,
Lenovo,
moving
like
this
that?
shell game around. Like, I also think they have a certain hubris that when you get a Bussy at a bargain basement price, you're like, well, see, I solved the problem by doing this.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, sometimes you have to anticipate. And I think they do a pretty good job of problem solving and not a great job of anticipating. Because again, the Rantanen move was a lack of anticipation. Okay, we're making this big swing. Why not have Sebastian Aho call the fucking guy before you go and get him? Like, that's a lack of preparation. They did that to themselves.
Yeah.
Okay? I don't blame Rantanen for what happened last year. And I think they salvaged as much as they could.
They did.
But the real fucking kick in the nuts is coming when we watch Marty Necas put his name on this cup as the second best center for the Colorado Avalanche.
We'll see about that.
Meanwhile,
but they're not going to win.
Second best center.
But you just said it yourself. They're going to be the President's Trophy winner.
They need the President's Trophy, the power of the President's Trophy to kick in,
and
because
also,
the Kadri move,
I also
that
think
was nice for them.
You're also viewing Necas through a completely different lens that I'm really struggling to understand.
But players get better
on a much better team. Number one,
well, I think the Hurricanes are a better team too.
Also, the other thing too about Necas is we've seen this time and again
like
from guys
with Ehlers. That would be nice.
It would be nice, but we've seen this out of guys from the Carolina Hurricanes that everybody gets all like, I can't believe you let this happen. And then we stop hearing from them, especially once we get to the postseason.
I don't know if they've had a younger player like that he was the big piece of that trade.
Yes.
To your point, sometimes you got to give a big piece up to get a big piece.
And it's not like they didn't give Natchez opportunities to have a crack at it. They got frustrated with the guy. And now he could be Colorado's frustration, as we found out last year. Okay, that's another thing you're kind of dismissing in that
he needs to prove it in the playoffs.
And he hasn't.
Full stop.
And he hasn't.
He's 27, though.
Yeah.
He's still only 27.
That's great. I'm simply saying we have not seen him prove it in the playoffs. And when you're with the Colorado Avalanche, yeah, man, it's not on you to do those types of things.
Sure,
which gets us back to the Carolina
Hurricanes.
Hurricanes.
Play with their top guy.
And this gets us back to the Carolina Hurricanes. And that's the thing that if you really wanted to drill this down, and what I'm looking for once we get to the postseason with the Carolina Hurricanes, it is the money that has been allocated to Andrei Svechnikov. Do it more. It's time for you, especially with the East kind of breaking up a little bit here, opening up a little bit. It's time for him to consistently elevate in the biggest moments. It's time for Aho to consistently elevate in those moments. But where I think where you and I will agree, where I went from being, I would say, indifferent about the goalies. I think the conversation around Freddie is just based on history, and people are done with Freddie Anderson. Well, and then we got caught up in some people got way too caught up in the Brandon Bussi phenomenon heading into the Olympic break. At some point that was going to cool off. And now we're going to find out how he handles working through this stuff. At least it's happening now, coming out of the break, rather than all of a sudden him not having it and being, unable to play the puck like we saw over the weekend, like those types of things. That stuff I think will work itself out as the weeks go on. I've always been indifferent about the goalie situation. I think the goalie situation is like quarterbacks in the NFL is the thing that you immediately go to and talk about as the reason for or against why something might happen. I do think that with the Hurricanes, their biggest issues has been, while they're at a scoring clip right now that's atop the league, when you get to the postseason and you see best on best, that scoring clip goes down. They don't consistently produce in the Eastern Conference Finals, as we know. That's going to be the big question mark for me. It has nothing to do with the goalies. If their top guys are producing, if their top guys are scoring, then we're fine.
Yeah, I'm saying the way Bussi's playing right now, it does have something to do with goalies. He needs to get back to the non-mistake, handle the puck better,
Hey, man, there's ebbs and flows to the season. And it was something that was hanging out in the back of people's minds as it related to the Hurricanes and Brandon Bussi coming out of the Olympic break. Is this coming at the worst possible time? Because the dude was absolutely in a zone. Can he get it back?
Right.
Sure he can.
And he got a contract too. So again, you don't know how people react to certain things. Yeah. That's, hey, I hope it works out for them. I hope I'm wrong. I do. I really do. But I just know, like you say, history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. And you watch these tournaments, you watch these games, and then you go, no, wait a second. Where was that guy? Oh, shit. That's where you get into. And maybe, obviously, we won't see Trocheck in the playoffs, right?
No.
But it's like Kadri. You're going to see Kadri in the playoffs. You're going to see some other guys and just be like, no, wait a second. I'm sure Winnipeg's saying the same thing about Ehlers, right? Like, I think they've made some really good, smart moves to put themselves in the position that they're in. It just seems to me like they always get to like this 11th hour and they can't make the final move, like you say, against the harder. You could beat Soda Popinski, but you can't beat Mike Tyson.
They thought they had it with Rantanen. Oh, well. Such is life. At the end of the day, you can eat your feelings when you go to Two Roosters and you get the Slavin Sunday.
Do I hear there might be a new contender?
Well, we'll get to that in Hey Joe. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Somebody called in with a Two Roosters hot take.
I like that.
We always enjoy a Two Roosters hot take. So head on out. The weather is getting perfect for this. So head on over to the Two Roosters locations all across the triangle. You can get, what are you laughing at?
Mikey P's got a good idea for you.
And what's that?
Speaking of Two Roosters and Dave Doran and the Strays, where we're going to be making a donation.
I told Mikey P no on the shirt. I told him no on the shirt. We don't need to go that far.
Tell Joe that Dave's Strays, it's a cartoon of him surrounded by cats and dogs and pets, with the proceeds going to the pet.
Yeah, we start getting into some likeness issues. And also, also the other thing too, as it relates to Dave Doran.
That would just be a nice little tile.
Yeah, I get that. But specifically with Dave, I'm really trying to avoid drama this year.
Okay. We can do
I'm
that.
trying to keep the peace between you two. Okay.
Okay.
I have to go back into good cop mode.
There you go.
In the meantime, if you call into the sports phone and Dave Doran catches a stray, yes, $2 goes into the pot. It goes to the SPCA. In the meantime, go to tworoosters.com, check out their new flavors. And when the Canes are back in action, head over to their spots at Lenovo Center and get yourself
three of them now.
Sunday. They got three.
Upstairs, the one outside the east entrance.
Yeah, like a grab and go
in the back
situation.
there.
Yeah, it's all good stuff. So again, go to tworoosters.com. Big thanks to Hometown Realty. Maybe you find yourself in a situation where you love Two Roosters so much you want to live near one. Tell Hometown Realty. They got you. MyHTR.com. You know, I really like the Wake Forest area. How far is that Two Roosters? How far is the factory? Oh, right. We can find a house around that in that area. Real simple. Again, that's myhtr.com, myhtr.com. Big thanks to Whitaker and Hamer. WH.lawyer is the website. Joe will have him on speed dial as he travels to Charlotte because you never know what traffic violations he's going to have. Hopefully, knock on wood, nothing happens to Joe on this trip to Charlotte. That would be nice. Again, that's WH.lawyer. And of course, with tax season here, you might have some questions. Maybe you're trying to do the taxes yourself, especially if you're a small business owner like we are. I learned that lesson last year where you're trying to do like, well, I've always done taxes this way because all I've ever had is W-2s.
Yeah, we screwed up our first year. That's fine.
And that's
We've
fine.
gotten help now.
Well, because we got experts.
That's right.
And
So can
Brassfield
you.
and Brassfield Accounting can help you in that. So get the right answers. Understand what is supposed to happen during this time of the year between you, your personal taxes, and your business taxes. It all happens with our friend at Brassfield Accounting. Again, that's brassfieldaccounting.com. And OG listeners, specifically, if you hit him up at brassfieldaccounting.com, he will do your personal taxes. It is March 9th. Get to it. You are running out of time. So hit him up, brassfieldaccounting.com. Football free agency. If you thought trade deadline discussion got deep into the weeds with things, folks, it's here. NFL free agency has arrived. Although you're in legal tampering mode,
I think so.
you can start talking, but things don't become official until 4:00 on Wednesday. But we're already finding out some key moves across the league, like, oh, look at that, Tua Tagovailoa. They actually did it. They released him. So him and Kyler Murray are now on that quarterback market. Carolina Panthers have 17 internal free agents and a lot of eyes on what's going to happen with, say, Rico Dowdle or Cade Mays. And, of course, going back to what Dan Morgan talked about at the NFL Combine, their big positions of need, which happen to be inside and outside linebacker right now. So that's kind of where the Panthers are at. Obviously, we're not going to spend too much time talking about it because all this stuff is fluid. As of right now, it's 11:30. Things will open up here in a little bit, and nothing becomes official until Wednesday anyway, if I remember my NFL free agency rules correctly. The other thing about NFL free agency, we talked about this a little bit last week with Brooke Pryor. When you look at the QB market, it really is the dregs right now. And I'm not necessarily sold on Tua anymore. The Kyler Murray thing is going to be the most interesting one because there are some teams that do desperately need a new quarterback. And there's a lot of baggage hanging around Kyler Murray in his time with Arizona. And it's not like Arizona has been a consistently good franchise, number one. Number two, they didn't do him any favors with the whole video game stuff from a couple of years ago. So that's been lingering over Kyler Murray. In fact, what was it? When I was at Heaster over the weekend, one of the sales reps, he's the Steelers guy. And he's like, psh. He's like, no. I was like, you would take another year of Aaron Rodgers over Kyler Murray? That's what you're telling me? But of course, the Steelers are in a completely different situation, like we talked about with Brooke. I think they probably want to tank with, they don't want to be good. They don't want to have the standard. They don't want the Mike Tomlin thing of barely getting into the playoffs. It wouldn't be the worst thing if they're actually bad this year, which is why they wouldn't kick the tires on Kyler Murray.
There's not a lot of sizzle and sex in this NFL, sex appeal in this NFL. There's probably a lot of sex, but not a lot of sex appeal.
No.
In this NFL free agency. I think Trey Hendrickson's obviously interesting, but the rest of these guys, it's like Alec Pierce, the big white doofy receiver for the Colts. Like, really?
Yeah.
He's the fourth best player available. Like, what are we talking about here? So you want to be, you really, this is true. I hate your family. I hate my family behavior. If you're like getting swallowed up by NFL free agency.
Well, as we know, There are some sickos out there.
Giglio's social crap.
You know, it's interesting. We're at the point with some of the social media videos that people send us. We've actually highlighted some of these on the show before. So it's funny when people we know send it to us.
Yeah.
Because it finally gets into their timeline and they might not have missed that social media dump. For instance, I'm gonna go to bed early tonight. Me at 3 a.m. watching tin can fights. If we can
Minhas amigas e meus amigos, sejam bem-vindos à luta do século. É Pepsi contra a Coca-Cola. Olha como vem a Coca-Cola dando porrada. A Pepsi também dá uma restada na cabeça da Coca-Cola. Vem a Pepsi, vem a Coca-Cola. A estratégia da Pepsi aí pra trás e pra frente. A Coca-Cola mais arredia. Acertou o primeiro Pepsi. Minha
Kill shot.
So I've seen this a few times on my social media timeline.
It's tin cans in some sort of like Herkimer jerk.
Yeah.
Hungry hippo metal.
It is like a Rube Goldberg machine that wails around a hammer, and then if you hit the other can enough, it'll pop open, right? I know we've talked about doing some of these events at our birthday bash. This one probably seems the most dangerous. It's like the easiest to do because we just do it on a table.
Right, but someone's hand could get...
True. There's also the expense of, we would want to do it with soda. Like, we would never do it with OG Light.
No.
That's just a waste of good OG Light, man.
No.
We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. You sent this to me. This was... You at least sent me real videos.
Yeah.
You sent this to me. Imagine seeing this while you're walking to Disney World.
It's Minnie Mouse.
And it's Minnie Mouse with a gentleman smoking a cigarette.
The person in a Minnie Mouse costume is a man with a mustache. It might be your dad.
He might be related. And he's getting filmed, and he tells the person who's filming him, "You're number one," flips him off, right? Now, again, this is a video I've seen a lot.
Yeah.
It'll show up every so often.
I just love how it says, imagine seeing this before entering Disney.
This is clearly somewhere like in Hollywood where they got the man on the street thing, because I see the palm trees. So they got to be somewhere in Hollywood to do the give me $10 and you get a picture with this. Like when you go to Times Square and you see the Ninja Turtles. If you ever just try to take a picture with the Ninja Turtles, they'll come at you. When faux Spider-Man is around, if you don't give them money, if you don't tip them, they will come after you.
Yeah.
So I remember when I took the kids to New York for the first time, they were fascinated by all of the Spider-Men and the Ninja Turtles and Elmo walking around. And I told them, under no circumstances do you walk up to those guys. We are not in Disney World. I'm not ruining the magic. That is a guy who will come after me if you try to take a picture with them. The magic, Joe, the fairy dust, the sprinkling of the fairy dust, pixie dusted, as the adults like to say. Now, that's a real video that you sent me.
Mm-hmm.
This is a video my dad sent me, and I'm really worried about the boomers, man, because they do AI slop as though it's real. My dad sent this to me. Mm-hmm. I'm convinced he thinks it's real.
Here, thrill seekers, the Joey television brand Real Flames Daredevil bike ramp. Built tough in genuine hardwood, polished steel, and blazing metal torches. Light it up, hit the pedals, and soar through real fire just like the pros. Easy to set up, easy to wow the whole neighborhood.
So that's clearly an AI faux ad, but I think the point that my dad was trying to make is classic boomer humor of, see, back in my day, we used to ride our bikes and we used to do stunts and we came out just fine. We're here.
We used to play with lawn darts. Why are you missing a toe, Dad? Well, we used to play with lawn darts.
What's the name of what's the name of the effect? It's like the Crunning Donner effect or something like that. It's basically survivor bias.
Okay.
So the essential argument is you think it's okay because you survived it. You're not focused on the kids, like you said, the lawn darts, like my cousin had a lawn dart go through his foot. For real. That's a thing that happened.
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. So it's funny you brought up the lawn darts. My mind immediately went to my cousin Rafi, and they were goofing around in the backyard of my grandmother's, and he had a lawn dart go through his foot.
That does not sound pleasant.
No, these are not Nerf lawn darts. These are straight up metal javelin darts.
Can you imagine throwing your kid when they were like 3 or 4 into the gunner seat in the back of the station wagon, or letting them ride up in the spot between the back windshield and the seats?
Unreal.
We did that. Yeah.
Unreal. Now, you are all in on something. This is something to keep an eye on in terms of college basketball and things going viral. I forgot that the Sun Belt Conference has the most ridiculous playoff bracket. I'm sorry, conference tournament bracket going in March, where it's just a series of buys, right?
It's a 14-team field that instead of making it a 16-team bracket with 2 buys,
Yes.
they give their number 1 and number 2 seeds a bye into the semifinals. Now, shouts to the West Coast Conference because they're the originators of this format.
Yeah.
Okay. But unlike the West Coast Conference, Georgia Southern is on a heater. They've won the West Coast Conference. Gonzaga wins it every year, and when they don't, St. Mary's does. The Sun Belt, though, Georgia Southern, the 10 seed, has now won 5 games in 5 days, including beating Marshall, who is just sitting around waiting for them in the semifinals.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to get hot if you stay hot. So Georgia Southern beats Marshall, and now they will play Troy for the 6th game in 6 days. So salute to the Wolfpack Heroes of 2024.
Yeah.
That was only 5 games.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Georgia Southern, they're about to run this thing and carve their own piece of history. They play Troy tonight in the Sun Belt Championship. Oh, yes, I will be watching.
Hey, I was going to say, this is a game that initially not something that was going to be on my radar to watch tonight. But shit.
Can they do it?
I want to see if they can pull it off. 6:00 tonight on ESPN2. They should make that an ABC game. Screw
Honestly.
ESPN2, man. You're not doing that game justice. I want to watch history. Like, get that thing on ABC right now. Mitch Northam, USA Today, women's basketball podcast here on our YouTube channel and participating in our OG Light Bracket Night on March 16th. A week from today, he is Mitch Northam. Mitch, what's going on, man?
Not much. Just recovering from 5 days in beautiful Greenville, South Carolina, and watching a whole lot of basketball in person and on my laptop.
I was going to say, you were there for the SEC while the ACC was in Duluth, Georgia. Before we get to this Kara era that we are in with Duke women's basketball, what was the of the people that you talked to that were at the ACC tournament? I'm assuming Duluth did what it was asked to do. They wanted this event. People were kind of confused by it, but did it work? Everybody happy with it? How did it play out?
Yeah, I didn't hear anything that was particularly, bad. I texted with some people who were there, and it seemed like it was well received and seemed like it was well run. I didn't hear any major complaints from anybody. Now, having said that, I was not there, so I can't speak firsthand to complain about the Wi-Fi or anything else like that if I had those complaints. But I didn't hear that there was anything, that was particularly all that bad. I will say I did notice that the attendance for yesterday's championship game between Louisville and Duke was 6,592.
Okay.
Last year's championship game in Greensboro between Duke and NC State was 11,823. So almost half.
How much did that have to do with NC State not being there?
Probably a whole lot. NC State tends to travel pretty well, especially if it's in state.
Right.
That probably has a lot to do with it. I'm surprised, again, I wasn't in the building, but Louisville fans usually travel pretty well, and especially to a place like Atlanta.
True.
So I'm a little surprised there weren't more Louisville fans there. But, I think all in all, I'll have to talk to, my folks around the ACC. It sounds like it was mostly they got what they wanted out of it, which is basically to see if this could work. That's like I wrote a story last week. I talked to Jim Phillips. I talked to Jackie Carson about why are we doing this? Why are we taking the tournament to Duluth? And the reason is there's 2 reasons. One, the coaches asked for it, despite Courtney Banghart saying, I don't even know where Duluth is. To which I'm not totally sure I believe her. Courtney has 2 Ivy League degrees and recruits kids from that area of Atlanta, of Metro Atlanta, I should say. So one reason is the coaches have been asking for this. The majority of the coaches in the ACC have been saying, hey, Greensboro is great, but can we move this thing around? The second reason is Jim Phillips and the ACC felt like if we're going to try to do this, women's basketball has never been more popular, never had more viewership and fan attendance and interest now's the time to see if we can move it around. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, you can always go back to Greensboro.
Mm-hmm.
I put the ticker on because you can get your tickets to Monday's event at the Longleaf Swan at oviesgiglio.com. Not that every basketball is a contingent on stars, but I feel like for women's basketball this year, specifically, particularly in our area, like Duke is an interesting story in that they started slow outside of the league and then really picked up some steam. But I think it's fair to say they haven't hit the threshold of having a name brand player. Mm-hmm. I think Carolina's kind of been in that boat to a certain extent. Obviously, we knew the one player's name for the wrong reasons. That's where I think you're getting some of the attendance stuff is off. And Louisville's had some players too, but it just feels like there's a lack of, Caitlin Clark obviously has driven women's basketball to different heights. And part of that is the name brand appeal of her. And I feel like there have been others in women's basketball, including the player at Iowa State, Mitch. And I think people will watch her this year. But it feels like, to me, particularly for us in the ACC, it feels like we're missing some of that star power.
Yeah, to kind of prove your point, I mean, just as many people went to the semifinal between Duke and Notre Dame on Saturday, 6,600, and I would say that the singular star in the ACC right now is Hannah Hidalgo at Notre Dame. But yeah, I mean, I think women's basketball as a whole this year, I think Mia and I have talked a little bit about this on the Women's Basketball Podcast. We don't have a singular face of women's basketball right now, like we had with not only Caitlin Clark, but at that time you also had Angel Reese. And then after they left last season, we had Paige Beckers and Juju Watkins. Yeah. And now all four of those people are gone, Juju Watkins being out for the year with an injury. And there hasn't really been anyone to step up and fill the void in the same way. Like Michaela Blakes at Vanderbilt is a great player, but they lost in the quarterfinals of the SEC tournament when they were supposed to go on this run, and she was supposed to make her case for Player of the Year. Sarah Strong at UConn, the Wolfblood, is the best player in the country, but she has no interest in being the face of women's basketball. Like, just an extreme introvert, and that's not a knock on her. That's just how she is. Audie Crooks at Iowa State is probably the most kind of, bubbly personality and likes to do media and stuff like that, and is also a really, really good player, one of the nation's leading scorers. But Iowa State's kind of not great this year. Like, they're going to be like a 9 seed. So we don't have like this combination of like, you're a great basketball player, you're a great personality off the court, and also your team is going to be a 1 or 2 seed and might have the chance to win the national championship in the same way that we've had with those 4 players in the past. Hidalgo's in kind of the same boat, really, really super talented player, but like, I think a lot of people would be surprised if Notre Dame made it any further than the Sweet 16, and making the Sweet 16 might even be a jump for them. They finished the season strong, but they're probably going to be a 6 seed.
So let's talk about the, I guess, many runs that seem to be taking place in ACC women's basketball, right? Wes Moore at NC State had his run. It looks like, and Courtney Bangart's been trying to build to this at UNC, but right now, all things in the triangle are coming up Kara Lawson right now, between the back-to-back ACC championships, the fact that she's with USA Basketball. Right now, it looks like we're in this little run here. It took a while to get here, though. And I guess the overall impression that I've gotten from Kara Lawson was her arrival to where we are today took some painful twists and turns to get the program the way she wanted. I mean, is that a fair assessment as to how we got here with Kara?
Yeah, I actually, I guess this came out 2 weeks ago or so. I got Kara one-on-one for the first time ever for a story that I wrote about her in the Assembly. And yeah, so a lot of the stuff I asked her was just about like program building and how she's done this and all that good stuff. I think one of the things that she did right off the bat was when she got the Duke job, her entire staff that she has is former head coaches. And that was because she had never been a head coach in college before. And she was like, I didn't know what I didn't know. And, So she hired Tia Jackson, who had been at Duke under Gail Gestencourt, and then went on to be an assistant coach for C. Vivian Stringer and Katie Meyer down in Miami, and was a head coach of Washington, and it didn't work out. But she has that experience. And there's some other, head coaches on her staff too, but Tia is like her top lieutenant. So, there was that aspect of it. Then I think, she got the job in 2020. Not long after that, we have NIL and we have rev share, and the transfer portal is taken off and stuff. And I think she needed to figure out, am I just going to go get the best players, or am I going to go get the players that fit me?
Yeah.
I think now we are seeing that Kara is getting the players that fit her. They don't usually have a lot of kids transfer out. Before last season, they had 0. This past offseason, they had really 1, because Vanessa De Jesus had graduated and then finished her, her master's or whatever at Notre Dame. Aluchi Okanawa was the ACC Tournament MVP last year. She left and went to Maryland. But other than that, they retain their players. I think Kara has done a good job of, identifying players that fit her and this Duke culture that she has built. And one of the things that I asked her about was, you watch college basketball players today, men and women, they all like to wear the leg sleeves, and they all like to have the swag, and some of them like to have the headbands, and some of them like to wear a t-shirt under their jersey, and some of them like to untuck their jersey. If you watch Duke, all those players look and dress the same. They all have their jerseys tucked in. None of them are wearing the sleeves. None of them are wearing the t-shirts. None of them are wearing the headbands. So I asked Kara, I was like, is that a coincidence, or is that something your program decided? She's like, that's just who we are. She's like, I think a team should look the same. A team is also an adjective, not just a noun. And so
I give Kara credit. She's got bangers. She's got bangers.
She does. She does have some bangers.
That's a good line.
So
it's an adjective.
I think that I think that's been kind of the secret sauce, is like she's figured out, like, okay, I need to, which this is kind of something the Tennessee coach can learn. I figured out that I need to recruit players that fit me rather than just going and getting the best transfer portal or the best McDonald's All-American or whatever. And
a very transferable conversation in the triangle. Given how the year went at a particular school with the NIL.
And they lean into the defense first mindset. I think Toby Fournier is someone who, if she was a bit more consistent on the offensive end, could be that star of the triangle in women's basketball, but it just really hasn't happened yet. She was kind of making a late season push against Hannah Hidalgo for ACC Player of the Year, but then just didn't finish the season well. And then, on Sunday fouled out of that game with 6 points. But she's got, players on her team that really fit her and really, for lack of a better term, just do what she asks.
Okay.
I'm going to ask Mitch a very specific question. And I'm going to do it in a way that is not speculative, and we'll do it in a way where I'm not reporting anything.
I was going to say this is where we're going to close things. So I want to see how you land this plane. How's Joe going to land this plane? I'm just going to sit back.
I just want to ask you a question. Wes Moore, 68 years old, has done an amazing job at NC State. Mm-hmm. But as we just illustrated, we are kind of sort of seeing Duke and Carolina maybe both pass them by, not just Duke. How much longer do you really think Wes, in this era at 68, with all the accomplishments that he had, the Final Four, which to this day I wish was in a different year than 24, so he could have gotten his true flowers. How much longer do you see him being interested in doing this entire enterprise?
Not much longer. Okay. I think just based on, and I'm not reporting anything either. Right. Just based on my interactions with him over the past year, and
this is someone you regularly interact with as opposed to Kara.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just watching him on the sidelines and watching him in press conferences, I think he is growing disinterested with the current state of college basketball, which is the roster management, the transfer portal, the NIL, all that stuff. I think that, those Elisu Kunane teams that he had, that won 3 straight ACC titles, really got assembled and put together like right before the portal became a real thing and right before NIL really took off. And, they caught lightning in a bottle, and all those players stayed together for the most part. They brought in the transfer point guard, but so they win 3 ACC titles. They go to an Elite Eight where they get screwed by the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee and UConn and, whatever.
Nina King. Yes.
Yes. 2 years later, they kind of catch lightning in a bottle again because he does use some transfers to build that team. But the centerpiece of that team is Isaiah James, who is the rare, comes in as a freshman, doesn't play, but stays and develops and gets better. And he goes to his Final Four. Last offseason, last May, last April, they took a lot of swings at a lot of really good transfers and did not get any of them. Players right now who are starting for Vanderbilt and starting for Tennessee and, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Camille Pierre kind of falls into his lap. If you're familiar with the way that the BYU quarterback transferred to Tulane, Camille Pierre transferred to NC State the same way from Vanderbilt, in that she transferred without the use of the portal. She was dismissed from the team midseason, enrolled in NC State. There was some back channeling, things happened, conversations. She's on the team. Hasn't been a good fit, I don't think. She's putting up good stats, but I think schematically and everything hasn't been a good fit. We've talked to Wes a couple times here and there. I think he said this to me. He said this to Noah about, like, I'm not going to hire a GM. Like, the head coach makes all the decisions anyways.
Right.
And I think just watching him, I think he's growing kind of disinterested with keeping up with the Joneses and having to play all the games that you play off the court in terms of roster management. And so it wouldn't shock me at all if he called it quits sometime relatively soon within the next year or two.
He has a nice little coaching tree as well. So there's some options out there. Lindsay Edmonds from Rice has done herself fairly well this year. She also had a team in the tournament 2 years ago. So it does feel like there may be some natural thought processes out there for who could potentially follow him.
I would say, hypothetically speaking, if Wes were to retire this year, and if he had influence over who his successor is,
which he probably should, right? I mean,
the first and only call will be to Lindsay Edmonds.
Okay.
And she will take that job. If for whatever reason Boo Corrigan decides, you know what, we're going to do a wide search. We're not just going to name Lindsay the head coach. We're going to see what our options are out there. There are a lot of really good young coaches that would be very, very interested in NC State, because in women's basketball, like, one of the things that a lot of these, really good coaches or who are at the mid-major level, even some sitting power 4 head coaches, what they really want is, like, they want to be at a school that gives a shit. And NC State does about women's basketball. Yeah. I mean, Reynolds Coliseum is always sold out. The people really care. And you're in the Triangle, which is a basketball, junkies heaven. So, like, that's a job that, for instance, Carly Thibault Dudanis, who is at Fairfield. She has taken Fairfield to 2 straight NCAA tournaments. She is the daughter of Mike Thibault, who won a WNBA championship with the Washington Mystics. She is regarded by many as, kind of one of the rising stars in coaching, and has turned down multiple Power 4 jobs, Wisconsin, Auburn, Rutgers last week. She is kind of waiting for the really good Power 4 job to open. I think it's also a job that, like, Megan Griffith at Columbia, a Courtney Bankart former assistant, would be interested in. Okay. NC State would have some real options, but I do think that Lindsay Edmonds makes the most sense as someone who worked at NC State under Wes for 8 years, who is from the state of North Carolina. I believe she's from Winston-Salem and played at App State. And has turned Rice into a winner. If they win the American tournament, it'll be their second NCAA trip in 3 years. She had a big hand in building those Elisu Kunane teams.
That feels like a very responsible conversation that we just had.
I think so.
Okay. These are things we can possibly do. So all those dings that I heard, all the people texting you in the middle of that conversation, Mitch, make sure you told them we're not reporting anything. Okay?
That's right.
Me up right now.
We're having a conversation.
We're just having a conversation. Mitch Northam, Women's Basketball Podcast, USA Today. Hey, man, we appreciate it as always. We will talk to you later.
See you on Monday.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Big thanks to our friends at Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority. Spring is here, right? You can just look outside. You see things blooming. The grass is getting greener. That means the mosquitoes are going to be here before you know it. So go ahead and get on top of it today. Mosquito Authority, Pest Authority, bugsbite.com. You can bundle and save. Big thanks to the Butcher's Market. You can check them out online at thebutchersmarkets.com. They have everything that you need. Sometimes I feel like we forget about the basics, right? We can talk about the grab-and-go meals.
Sure.
Steak and cheese sandwich that you got last week.
Delicious.
All those things. But it is a butcher's market.
Mm-hmm.
They have a butcher, multiple butchers. Do you need a specific cut of meat? They have it for you. You need something that's a little bit more exotic? Check out the freezer section where they actually have some of that stuff. So head on over to the butcher's market and, again, block and tackle, right? Basic stuff. Block and tackle. Sometimes you just need the meats. They have it, and they got the cut of meat you're looking for. And, of course, our friends at Bloom & Blinds, they've been bringing you the After Darks this season. We'll be in full-on After Dark protocols thanks to our friends at Bloom & Blinds for the ACC Tournament. You can check them out online at bloominblinds.com. That's bloominblinds.com, or call them directly at 919-980-9815. OG listeners, 10 or more window treatments, you will get 10% off from Bloom & Blinds. 919-980-9815.
Since we're about to give the After Dark a workout,
Mm-hmm.
I love, and Saturday was another great example, by the way. I love that, Chris. Some sponsors might say, hey, guys, not sure I love your language all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, guys, could you do this? Hey, guys, could you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Chris is like, no. Oh, no. Bring me the madness. That's why I want to sponsor the After Dark. So Salute. You. How was that, Elijah Craig? You sleep okay on Saturday?
Yeah.
You were spicy. You're feeling it.
No,
I was feeling good.
I was spicy because
Feeling hot.
In fact, you're actually kind of doing it with the Canes.
Feeling hot.
You're doing a little bit with the Canes too.
Well, no, you get performative sometimes, and I'm just kind of like,
well, because your Duke shit is performative.
no.
It's like you live to piss people off.
No,
and I'm like,
that's not true.
And what happens? It's just like you're fucking our audience.
No. The audience respects the fact that I don't like them, and I'm not fake with them. Correct. I'm not fake with them. And when like last year, when they convert me, it's because I see it and I realize it, and you're playing at a certain, you're at a certain spot, and I respect that. And when I say it, then they respect that.
Yeah.
The thing about Duke though is they just won the women's tournament too.
Yeah.
How are you a Duke fan if you didn't? It's just completely soulless. It's like rooting for the sunrise and the sunset.
So when Carolina was doing it,
in everything,
they were winning everything there for a hot minute.
Not in football. Duke won the ACC championship in football.
Let's not get crazy.
Football, men's basketball, women's basketball.
Yeah.
The quitter who went to Virginia, watch him win the fucking baseball this year.
Oh, what? Duke baseball's
Yes.
going? Yeah.
Watch.
Okay.
Just watch.
They're having a run right now. Good for them. They're having a run.
When's it going to end?
Again, I think you're doing too much. And as far as and the reason why I say all you're doing is pissing people off, it's like, don't tell Duke fans they're on some sort of sun run this year.
I didn't say they were on a sun run.
Or that things are going to go
they
their
have
way.
that
They've lost some players.
They have their thing cranked right now.
I'll be curious.
Bricked, as the kids like to say.
Bricked up, double checked up.
Bricked.
Yeah. I don't know.
As far as the Canes, it's called a projection.
No.
It's called looking at with your own eyes. I've been to however many games this year, Joe.
I think.
Sorry, Joe.
You know what pissed me off?
Sorry, Joe.
You know what pissed me off, actually?
Don't make me say it.
Oh, what? Having gone to games? Oh, I forgot. Going to games gives you super secret powers over not going to games.
Powers. I'm watching the games, man.
You got your sheets. That's the thing I don't get at home.
I don't know.
You get your sheets that you get to keep.
I don't know.
No, you know what I don't have to go to a game to do or not do? Find it amusing that you're shoulder shrugging Duke. Meanwhile, you're making excuses for state.
I didn't shoulder shrug Duke.
You're shoulder shrugging Duke.
No.
And what they've been doing to the ACC as if Michigan wasn't sprinkled in.
Two
or
different
what they've
things.
been doing all season long.
But they didn't do, as you said, because I listen. They didn't do to Michigan what they've been doing to the rest of the ACC. They beat them
in terms of score, but that's why I focused on
Points allowed.
on the points allowed.
Yeah.
That's where Duke's been. Do I have to spell it out for you? That's why I use the numbers, not the margin of victory. I only use the defensive numbers of what they're keeping teams from doing.
Yeah,
I think that's the most important part for Duke.
You took me making a factual statement.
No.
Yeah,
I did.
Here is a factual statement, Joe. They played Louisville, Kansas, and North Carolina without their star players. I didn't condemn them for beating those teams. I merely pointed out that they've played 3 teams. Now, here's the part that you disagree with, and that's fine. That's a fact. My projection is just watch the fucking seas part for them. Just watch.
We'll see.
You know it will happen.
I don't know it'll happen.
You know it will happen.
I don't. I think you want it to happen because you have your 98 Vols prophecy in play here. That's what you're more interested in. So you're projecting that you want to
profit from Duke winning. Yes.
That's what you're focused on.
I would love for the 98 Vols to come into play because I said it. But now we have competing forces, just like the President's Trophy and making moves for Colorado. We have competing forces because they won in Raleigh. They really needed to lose him.
It might have just been a Coach K thing when it's all said and done.
And we do have that variable.
Might have just been a Coach K.
It is nice to have a variable.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think the thing that got me fired up and why I started cursing was because I thought you were being incredibly soft on NC State. Incredibly soft on NC State.
And this is the other part from Saturday that I would still disagree with you. Since 9-2, they have been a failure. But I think disappointing is more of the general mindset of what this season has been. It's been a disappointment. But the whole season itself, to have people interested, to have people at the games, to have 15,000 people at a Stanford game on a beautiful Saturday, by the way.
Yeah.
After they had gotten their teeth kicked in by Duke, that is at least something. It's something. Making the tournament is something. It's a different conversation from what was promised. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at is the entire season, if they make the tournament, which according to Patrick and everybody else,
be fine.
It feels like they will. I don't think you can characterize the season as a failure. I think you can characterize the season as a disappointment, particularly after they got to 9-2 in the league. I'm 1,000% with you on what has happened since they got to 9-2 in the league. But I think there was some, and you pointed this out too, when it was happening. There was some problem solving after they got back from Maui and Auburn.
Sure, but when the competition got more difficult down the stretch, and this is where is where things get competing. Oh, the ACC's falling apart down the stretch. Well, why is the ACC falling apart down the stretch? Could it be that NC State wasn't all that considered top of the league when they got up to a 9-2 record in the ACC?
Right.
Competition gets more difficult with Louisville and Miami, and Jay Lucas being
the Louisville game is the one that I'll just keep shaking my head at.
And I can sit here and while it looks on paper, oh my God, how could you lose to Miami? How could you lose to Notre Dame? As Patrick would continue to tell her, how could you lose to Stanford? He keeps telling you, well, they're just Q2 losses, right? Those aren't necessarily losses that are quote unquote bad. Okay, well then maybe I viewed it wrong. I'm not looking at it necessarily as, man, how can you lose to Miami? How can you lose to Notre Dame? How can you lose to Stanford? It's like, oh, well, maybe NC State just didn't really look so hot when the competition got harder down the stretch. And one of those wins against North Carolina, you were missing your 2 best players.
This also goes back to what we established previous.
Yeah.
Duke is way the fuck up here. Everyone else in the league is a step below them.
I'm not talking about Duke. I'm talking about State.
Anything that can happen when you play like teams, which Stanford is a like team, whether you want to hear it or not.
Yes.
You could lose. It can happen. So I agree with you that this SMU and Clemson wins away are what's saving them right now, quite frankly. So that's a good thing. But you're right. And Virginia Tech home was a good win. But to play the way that they did at Louisville and against Virginia, there's no fucking excuse for it at all.
So Florida State and NC State, 10-8 in the conference.
Mhm.
Both 10-8 in the conference.
Florida State, by the way, started 0-5 in the league.
So
They have been pistol red hot.
So when you come in with the NIL, you come in with the hot talk, you come in talking about how you're going to finish in the top 4. You called your shot.
Mhm.
I don't think it's off base to point out that you failed in calling your shot. Therefore, it is a failure. Straight up. You called your shot about what this year was going to be.
Sure.
A lot of fans called their shot on what they were going to be.
Yeah.
And you finished with the same record as Florida State at 10-8.
With a new also
with a new coach. You also look at other first-year coaches, okay, who did not come in with the bluster, did not come in calling their shot. They came in understanding what the situation was. It was time for a refresh. We're bringing in a new coach that we feel strongly in. Let's see how this goes. Ryan Odom quietly went 15-3 in the league. Quietly went 15-3 in the league. Miami, new coach, quietly went 13-5 in the league. Okay.
Ryan Odom had the most Virginia season ever, right?
Okay.
15-3, lost to his rival, lost to Duke,
Okay.
lost to Carolina.
So
beat everybody else, which is what you always say.
Okay. Do NC State fans, you always talk about these existential crises, these existential conversations. I want more cups than I want consistency.
Yeah.
If NC State had Virginia's season, you don't beat Duke, you don't beat Carolina.
That's great. It's a great
How do you take it? You're still second in the ACC.
I know. Well, I talked about this with Louisville last year. They didn't win an NCAA tournament game.
Shit. Miami didn't have to play Duke.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that obviously helps because the schedule's all supposedly stupid. And here's the other thing where it's a failure. This is where I'm going to put it back on you. You spent all year telling me that Carolina and State were the same team.
I don't know why you're assigning anything that State does to me.
Because it's not about State and you. This is about you specifically going off on people saying North Carolina and State were the same team. The Spider-Man
at the time where they were
at the time,
odds-wise and metrically, they were in the same spot.
Where are they now?
Oh, they've fallen apart. I said since 9-2, it's been a failure.
So let's take Will Wade's words. Let's look at the whole body of work. I just laid out you versus the rest of the competition in terms of new coaches and also what you're supposed to be doing. And that is to be over on North Carolina, because that was part of the reason why Will Wade came here, is because you want to jump over North Carolina. And both teams were at the same inflection point. Okay.
Yeah.
And more
in late January for sure.
And more was thrown Carolina's way when you add on the injuries with Henry Vasar and Caleb Wilson now being done. And
just Caleb Wilson, not Vasar.
Well, now Caleb Wilson being done.
Yes.
Okay. One finished with the double bye, the other didn't. So
yes, we're just having a difference of opinion in terms of words and word choices. That's all.
You want to get caught up on words.
Right.
Cool.
Words still matter.
Words. Well, you know what else matters? How you talk.
I know.
Matters.
And that's the big difference between
factors into
Odom
how you
and
assess.
Lucas.
And that's how
Will.
you assess the room. That's how you assess the situation. Now, before any NC State fans say, oh man, you take it oddly personal. No, I don't care what Will Wade says. What I'm getting at is that's how he decided to approach the season. And I'm judging it based on how he talked at the introductory press conference and all throughout the year.
Yeah.
Didn't work out. We'll see what happens in the ACC tournament. But for the regular season,
I don't think anything good is going to happen in the ACC tournament.
We shall see. We shall see. Let's go to the orgy.
I don't think you want to do that.
The orgy sports phone?
I don't think you.
Is that an OG fan? Is that a YouTube? Do I charge $50 a month for that?
I don't think YouTube will allow that.
You'd be surprised what YouTube allows.
Really?
Let's go to the OG sports phone.
919-444-2211. Call the OG sports phone and curse or don't.
All right, let's go to a 460.
Joe's. Tim from New York. What's going on, guys? What is going on? What is happening here? This is bizarre. My Will Wade sheets are crisp and clean. They're put up in the linen closet. I'm afraid I won't even use them again until next year. Is this a feature of the first half of the ACC schedule having a weak strength of schedule versus the second half having a strong one? Was our first half results kind of a paper tiger? But that doesn't even explain the result against Notre Dame and Stanford. What's happened to the resiliency that we had in that first half? We beat Clemson. We won games on the road. I honestly would love some analysis here. What's going on with the defense? Why are they giving up so many points when it was a top 40 defense leading into the Carolina game? Really would like to hear you guys' thoughts. By the way, thanks for the swag, Joe. I appreciate it. I'll hang up and listen.
Hey, what Tim is referencing, I believe sometimes things get a little cross-wired. There's an offline conversation, and usually it results in me sending you stuff from the secret staff.
Oh, well, that was nice. Listen, I think there's a lot of things going on in terms of you have the structure, the composition of the roster, right?
Mm-hmm.
The schedule, it did help, but again, there were some tests in that first half of the first 11 games that they passed. To me, the most perplexing thing is this: when you lose the way that you do against Louisville, invariably a good coach wins the next game. Full stop. Wins the next game. Not only wins the next game, but the team comes out and breathes fire.
Yeah, they're fired up.
And that didn't happen against Miami.
No.
Now, they could have won the Miami game, but he mismanaged the end of the Miami game so grossly that I think it affected him. And then the third part of this has been his communication with his team. You can't keep telling somebody that they suck and think every time the response is going to be, "Oh no, I'll show you."
There was one game where it might have paid off, and that was the Carolina game.
Right.
Here's the classic. Prove me wrong.
The rest of the time, sometimes you got to fucking hug them up and love them up.
Yeah.
And instill confidence, as we talked about with Rod Brindamore. Coaching is giving your players confidence to be better than they really are. He has not done that this year, and particularly in these last 9 games. He has failed the team in these last 9 games. He has failed the team in these 9 games.
Use the F word?
I am using the F word because, again,
okay,
you could have one Louisville. You can't have 3. They have had 3.
Sounds a lot like. So what was that stat again?
The season is not a failure.
What was that stat again? You put yourself into the category of some really shitty NC State teams with that stat?
With
the
just being in the bubble?
No, the 30-plus point.
Oh, God. That was 1993, 94, 92, 93. The two of arguably, the one is inarguably the worst season in school history.
So you're putting yourself in the conversation with some of the worst teams in NC State basketball history?
Yes, with those 3 losses, absolutely.
Sounds a lot like a failure to me. It's 919.
Hey, OG, it's your favorite High Point alum. We're heading back to the dance, back-to-back champs, and our baseball team won the series against number 9 Florida. You hate us because you ain't us.
Have fun at that resort. Have you ever been on High Points campus?
Not since they've become whatever their fund money is now. I don't know what's the.
It puts the Grand Floridian to shame, man. It looks like a Disney resort. It's ridiculous. That's not college. It's a resort town. What are you talking about?
Ain't life. Ain't real life.
Let's go to an 828.
Hey, Joe and Joe. Want to play a game? 64.9%, 63.6%, and 61.3%.
Ooh, blind item. I forgot. I didn't realize we had a blind item in the OG Sports Phone Hopper.
Oh, 54. Is that Herb?
See what happens.
Or Sid?
Let's see.
Match the first season winning percentages to each of the last 3 NC State basketball coaches, Gottfried, Keats, and Wade. Those percentages all look pretty similar, I reckon. Quick question. Since college basketball is a year-to-year proposition, like Giglio always says, and coaches no longer build long-term programs like they used to, what must Wade do to avoid ending up like Keats and got fired? Thanks.
Well, the Got Man had some other underlying issues. I don't think Will is in that.
No, I don't think. No.
Wait, what are you? 17-18 is 63.6. That's Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
Mark's first year, they were 64.9.
Mm-hmm.
Who was the other one?
Hey, Joe and Joe. Want to play a game? 64.9%, 63.6%, and 61.3%.
Those were the 3.
Huh. Well, Will's 61.3.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin 63.6.
Okay.
And Mark was 64.9.
Huh.
Sid is 55.6.
Well, he did better than Sidney Lowe.
Sid did get to the ACC championship game.
There
and
is
beat Carolina at home.
There is that. There is that.
It was a 7-year though, so next year's the year.
I'm going to be an asshole now. So
maybe Herb was 54.
I don't remember.
Yeah, Herb
was 54.
Herb's 53-1.
So I'm going to be an asshole here. So what you're telling me is,
maybe he's talking about ACC.
Your first year is on the level of a Mark Gottfried rookie season and a Kevin Keats rookie season.
It's below.
It's below. So again, I ask. That's not why you were brought here.
No.
Okay.
No.
I'm just wondering when we get to that threshold for you. Let's go to a 910.
Me?
Well, clearly there is no threshold for you, but let's go to a 910.
My brother and I went and watched that. This here's Carl, by the way. My brother and I went down there and watched that Stanford game this past weekend. They still ain't going to turn me loose from the nervous hospital after that one. I reckon that Williams feller's our new Charles Shackelford. Just a shaving and a shaving. Maybe next year at this time they'll turn me loose from the nervous hospital. Go Wolfpack. Love you fellers.
It's good stuff.
That was inspired.
Let's go to the dictionary just because I think it will bolster both of our cases.
Oh boy.
No, I'm serious. Number one, lack of success.
Yeah.
To my point, a true failure this year would be a 500 record, don't make the tournament. That's a failure in my book.
Sure.
However, look at number two. The omission of expected, or required action.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that you could argue number two.
Yeah.
And I could argue number one.
And I think I know where the argument is successful. Mine. Let's go to a 919.
Hey, John Shire looks like he's going to win the ACC Coach of the Year award. Meanwhile, Tennessee State just won the OVC with head coach Nolan Smith in his first year. Are we sure John Shire is the best coach from that national championship basketball team? I'm not.
Good for Nolan Smith. I saw that headline. Good for him, man. Good for him.
It's one of those wonky situations too, where if I'm not mistaken, they would have gotten in either way.
Yeah. He's had an interesting interesting adventure since leaving Duke's bench.
Oh yeah.
The Louisville. The less said about Louisville, the better. Let's go to 828.
Morning, Joes. Monday after the Duke UNC round 2 matchup. This is Duke fan Jake. Couple of things wanted to share and maybe get your thoughts on. First of all, shout out to Malik Brown, 4-year ACC player, 2-2, the Syracuse and Duke, stepping up in what many are calling a best Duke senior night performance by a non-star or any player since Justin Robinson in 2020, hitting a number of threes, including a bank three. David Robinson's son, stepping up big time. So shout out Malik. Thank you so much for being, I think, the best defender in the ACC. And we'll see, what happens from here with him. Second, I think we experienced a little bit of karma. I'm very superstitious and I believe in karma. And, as a former camera crazy and K-Ville resident and all of that myself, I just, camera crazy, don't make stupid ass signs like poking fun, making fun of Caleb Wilson's injury, because we had instant karma, in fact, to another Caleb, the one on our team. Just, there's no reason to do that. It's a bad look, period. It's part of this whole, coarsening of culture. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old or something, but it's not funny. It wasn't even clever. It just sucks. So, Carolina, just because Carolina fans have done it before, for instance, making shirts about Zion injuries, foot injury, and shoe exploding, and other examples, it doesn't make it right. Just don't do it. Learn ball, make a better sign, do something more clever, whatever. Third, I'm sorry to Carolina fans for what it's worth for Caleb Wilson's injury. I did think it was interesting. I saw a clip of John Henson, Tar Heel legend, on one of his podcasts, or Field of 68, talking about how it was interesting that Caleb Wilson was dunking so hard in practice he broke his thumb at this point in the season, because apparently Roy was super afraid of this kind of thing, some kind of freak injury happening, and they would do sort of like light practices, just stay in shape, get some cardio. So shout out Roy, and obviously I'm not blaming this on Hubert, but it is interesting that this happened, and it's just really sad for a superstar to not get his chance in March. So there, but for the grace of God, go all of us, and I hope he heals up well and has a great NBA career. And yeah, go Duke. Glad we got the win, 29-2. Pretty damn good. Hope we can get healthy and make a deep run. Thanks, guys.
Couple things. One, I think as you get older, what your tolerance for antics, it goes down. So this idea that there's this coarsening of, no, we're all old enough to remember when the Cameron Crazies would do even wilder shit. I mean, they're tame in comparison to how they used to be now. I think what ends up happening is you get older and you would probably find yourself in college annoying as shit, if you think about it. If you went back in time today and visited yourself, you would go, damn, you're obnoxious. Motherfucker. This is why I can't go back and listen to stuff that I did back in my 20s.
Sure.
Because it's like, yeah, I'd probably hate me too at 47, listening to 24-year-old me. So I think there's an element there of you go back and you look at what the Cameron Crazies are doing. You can't sit here and say, well, my class never would have done that. Your class probably said worse, if you think about it. So there's that. Also, the one thing I wish people would stop doing, and I get it, social media makes it really, really easy. Stop falling for the bait of, well, our fan base would never do that, because invariably you're going to find somebody online who did the exact thing that you said, oh, we would never do this, or what about this? It's whataboutism when it comes to rivalry stuff. I'm sure if you look hard enough, you're going to find instances of some really problematic shit said by both fan bases, because that's what sports does with people, man. So don't fall for that trap, because you're just going to drive yourself nuts. Yes, there were shirts for Zion, just like Duke fans tossed drinks at Carolina, a couple of years ago and all that kind of stuff. All right, let's go to a 919.
Hey, guys, Matt Fuquay.
No, I'm going to save Matt, actually, because Matt went like 3 minutes on schedules. We'll save that for Wednesday. Let's see, 919.
Hey, guys. I don't know if you guys were at the game for Pack on Saturday, but just wanted to point out something I found kind of interesting. Every single game, the team runs out, and then about a minute or two later, Will Wade does his slow WWE walk-in with the camera following him, where he's just acting like he's about to go in there and join that cage match. And every time fans have been cheering for him, but Saturday was the first time it was quiet. There was nothing. Camera was following him walk in, and there wasn't a clap in the stadium. I mean, I know it's year one, but that's not good. That's really not good. I mean, I hope he can turn around, but ugh. Love the show, guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of whiplash.
A little bit of it. A little bit. What was it? We got a couple of texts, and some people have brought up, calling out basketball coaches in relation to old football coaches. For instance, we got an 828. Hubert Davis is John Bunting and Seth Trimble is Connor Barth. Going back to the first game with his three-pointer that got him the win.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So Hubert Davis is John Bunting, Seth Trimble is Connor Barth. And then we get another text about, hey, man, is this just really a matter of Chuck Amato, speedrunning Chuck Amato with Will Wade, which I've brought up. I'm like, I think Will Wade's a better coach than Chuck Amato. But yes, to the caller's point, some of the changing and how people are embracing this stuff. And I think that's actually going to be NC State's most fascinating part. We can talk about the roster all day. You can talk about the roster all day. Who's going to be back? What do they go after? They're going to go after big men, all that kind of stuff.
People back. There's going to be one person back.
One person back. That conversation, we kind of know how it's going to go. The real question is going to be, how do they talk about it? How do they approach next year? In the best case scenario, I'll give you this, right?
Since his messaging has been so on point this year.
Yes. Well, as somebody texted me who works over at the university, maybe worry less about your stolen valor of state across your jersey and worry more about winning, because that ticked some people off how that was handled.
Sure.
Okay. That definitely ticked some people off. Now, what I was going to get at is, and I'm gonna throw you a bone because I've been banging on you about being soft at NC State here down the stretch. Maybe where you're right, maybe where you will be right is your Louisville thing, right? Because you've been hammering Pat Kelsey. Mm-hmm. You're going to be hammering Ryan Odom next year.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Will Wade got it right, and that he didn't come out of the gate hot with this immediate turnaround like we saw with Pat Kelsey last year. We saw the difficulty of year to year this season with Louisville. And as we saw,
still a tournament team this year. I mean, it's a good thing.
But you like to point out they didn't win in the NCAA tournament last year after a hot start. I know you have your takes ready to go for Virginia if Ryan Odom doesn't get out of the first weekend.
Yep.
Okay. So maybe NC State got it right with Will Wade. Whoa. We don't want to give him all the goods immediately. We'll build to that.
Yeah, there's some of that. The true concern there, of course, though, is he's the one who put the roster together this year. And he said so many things this year about that process. And analytics and building a team for this, building a team for that. And it's just like, I don't need any of that stuff to sit in this. I was there on Saturday. I don't need any of that to sit in a building and say, Stanford somehow has a better roster than you do.
This gets to what we this is what we get.
Stanford Joe with a D3 transfer, a kid whose only other offer was Yale,
which you found fascinating,
right?
Yeah,
and a JUCO kid who they probably had to smooch a little bit to get into the Stanford, right?
Probably,
but
this is where we get to what we talked about with Mitch and joked around a little bit. And maybe I should get guys that make sense for me, rather than trying to go shopping and put this thing together and go from there.
And also build a team that you think can win a championship, not quote unquote win in the ACC.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're competing for. Like I do think we never talked about his comments after the Duke game. And I don't think it was fake humble. Like I think it really was an awakening for him to see Duke up close and personal and the way that they operate to the point where it's like they have elite level. The way that they go to the scorer's table is elite. And I'm like, I've never heard someone say that before, but okay. But it basically said they're the gold standard.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
And they are.
That's who you're fucking competing against. The gold standard. You're not competing against anybody else.
No, it's a completely different thing. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for today's show. We will see you in Charlotte on Wednesday, immediately following the NC State Stanford game.
Yes.
It's going to be an interesting one.
Spoiler. I'll tell you how it ends.
We'll see you later in the week.